So the PWHL Draft and awards ceremony are in the books, putting a bow on this inaugural season. No surprises at the draft as Sarah Fillier goes #1 to New York. The year-end awards were handed out, and it was Toronto who dominated, and the PWHL playoff MVP joins us on Hockey North.
What did you guys do to Walter? Like, Walter is dirty, so they have to go get it professionally clean.
Rob Pizzo, Karissa Donkin back with you. And Karissa, you know where I'm going to start. The draft. No surprise up top. Sarah Fillier going #1 to New York. We all knew that was going to happen. She was #1 on pretty much everybody's mock drafts. Last week, we asked you to put together your first round. We're going to put it up on the screen. You got all 6 players right. You were 3 for 6 as far as where they were going to go. So let's start right there. Your impressions of the first round.
Yeah, you know what? I'll take that, Rob, honestly. Yep. The order for sure. I think Claire Thompson at number 3 was a bit of a surprise to me, not because, I mean, she's a fantastic player. I think probably the best defender available in the draft. I just thought if Minnesota's going to take a defender that it would be Kayla Barnes. So that's sort of where the order went off for me, but that would have been the biggest surprise in the first round. I wasn't surprised at all with the players who were taken in the first round.
And sticking with Minnesota, obviously that first round pick, like you said, just helps their blue line so much. But, you know, they've had to make changes. They made a change behind the bench with Ken Klee like a week before the season. Then just days before the draft, the league announces Natalie Darwitz is out. And everyone still kind of wondering what was going on behind that. And then this kind of struck us at the draft. Ken Klee gets this response.
Natalie Darwitz, the general manager, has parted ways with the Minnesota franchise. Ken Klee and the coaching staff making the selections here tonight. All right, the pick is in, and
And just to be clear, Karissa, the draft once again was held in Minnesota. So what the heck is going on in the state of hockey?
It's a good question, Rob, and it's one that we don't know the answer to yet. I mean, I think there are a lot of unanswered questions, particularly from the fan base in Minnesota about what happened, to lead to Natalie Darwitz departing the organization so close to the draft. Obviously, your general manager is the most important person at the draft and presumably had been working on the organization's draft plan for months before she departed. And then, a few days before the draft to have someone else come in is obviously not an ideal situation. So we don't know exactly what happened there. We're still trying to piece that together. We do know that head coach Ken Klee, before he was brought in kind of a week before the season to replace the other coach who departed. We know in the summer that he had actually interviewed for both jobs, for the head coaching job and for the general manager's job as well. And he didn't get either of those jobs. And then he kind of came in at the last moment. And so beyond that, Rob, that's something that we're still very much trying to piece together. But certainly by that reaction, I think you can see that some fans in Minnesota have some concerns about what's going on in the future of the organization.
Drafting Britta Curl, she's come with a little bit of controversy. Walk us through a little bit of that, because obviously now when you've got one professional league, all eyes are on you, and when you make a controversial pick, people are going to talk about it.
Yeah, and I think people are talking about it, and that controversy, Rob, stems from some posts that she's interacted with on social media, some anti-LGBTQ posts. So there has been quite a bit of chatter on social media about that pick. I actually had a fan in Montreal email me and tell me that they were, disappointed to see that. So I think it's something that you have to think about in terms of this league has been, so inclusive, and it's been a huge part of the league's brand to make everybody feel comfortable going to games. The league had really successful Pride nights in every market this past season. And there are players in the league who are doing really great advocacy work in this area. Aaron Ambrose is one of them. Jamie Lee Rattray is another. And so I think that's where some of the questions stem from. I mean, you also have to talk about, a number of players, staff, fans of this league are part of that community. So it's a question that I put to head coach Ken Klee, who was running the draft for Minnesota on Monday night. I asked him, he said earlier in the press conference that he spoke to former coaches who coached Britta Curl, former teammates with Team USA, and they all endorsed her. To be fair, they all said that she's a good teammate and somebody who's good to have in the locker room. And so I just asked, did you speak to anybody from the LGBTQ community? Because that is a different perspective. And the question did seem to throw him off a little bit. So I don't get the sense from the answer that that was maybe something that was on his mind, but I think it's a question that Minnesota is going to have to answer at some point this season.
Last one on the draft before we move on, because last week we talked about international players, and by my count, 7 different countries were represented during this draft. That's just great for the league, isn't it?
Yeah, it's great for the league. I mean, the goal of this is to have the best players from all over the world. So not just Canada and the US. And we saw a lot of really talented Swedish players. We saw the first Russian player drafted this year. And I think it's also good for those countries as well, because if you play for, Team Finland or Team Sweden, maybe you get to see the best Canadian or the best American players once or twice a year at the World Championship. And that's really hard to get better if you're not always playing the best. So at the end of the day, it's good to grow the game internationally as well.
Well, let's move on a little bit, because the draft wasn't the only thing going on in Minnesota. The awards ceremony also went on, and Toronto, despite that heartbreaking loss in the first round, went home with some regular season awards. Natalie Spooner winning Forward of the Year and the Billie Jean King Award as MVP. Toronto winning a bunch of awards on that awards ceremony. Your thoughts on what seemed to be a pretty predictable awards ceremony?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can argue with Natalie Spooner as the MVP and the best forward. I mean, there's no question she was the best player in the league this season. It was honestly an incredible campaign by her. I think the way that, the points and the goals she scored, obviously, but just the way that she did it. And I think just the way she carries herself and that team, I don't think Toronto would have went on that streak without Natalie Spooner. I mean, I think she scored something like almost a third of their goals this season, really carried them on the power play, honestly. So that was really deserving. On my ballot, I think it would have been pretty similar. The only areas where I might have gone in a different direction, Rob, is goaltender of the year. I think you have to talk about Erin Frankel. Obviously, Kristen Campbell had a fantastic season, but I don't think Boston makes the playoffs without Erin Frankel. She kept them in so many close games where they just couldn't score a goal. And then for coach of the year, honestly, I think I would have given some consideration as well to Corey Chevery in Montreal, because she had so many injuries to deal with this season, including obviously losing Marie-Philippe Poulin for a few games, which is not ideal. And I think that team really, I would say, overperformed under her leadership this season. Obviously, Troy Ryan did a fantastic job as well to turn the ship around in Toronto, but that's sort of where I would have went with that, but you can't argue with most of those picks, Rob.
Absolutely. One more thing before we go. This is hot off the press. Is Vicky Sanahara going to be inducted into the Canadian Sports Hall of Fame? Quick word on what you think of what she's brought to the game of women's hockey, and what an honor it is for her.
Well, I remember watching her at the 2002 Olympics when I was maybe 11 years old, and that team truly changed women's hockey in Canada. Honestly, it will always and forever be my favorite favorite gold medal game. That's the game, the tournament that introduced me to women's hockey. And when I think of her, I just think of leadership. So many people talk about, what she brought to those teams. And she's one of those people, you think about her and you kind of wonder why she isn't in the Hockey Hall of Fame, to be honest. I think she's somebody that very easily could be. And obviously she's a super successful coach now, just has a really smart hockey brain. So that is really awesome news to hear. It's extremely well deserved.
I echo everything you just said. Karissa, thank you so much for all your contributions this year. It's been so much fun talking hockey with you.
It's been fantastic, Rob. Thanks for having me.
Thanks to Karissa Donkin. And let's talk a little bit more about Minnesota, because it's been over a week since they won the Walter Cup. We wanted to give them time to spray their champagne, celebrate a little bit, and maybe let the Advil kick in before we talk to the playoff MVP, Taylor Heise. Taylor, first off, of course, congratulations on a fantastic season. I have to start with the question that I ask every athlete who's fresh off a championship. How has life been since lifting that trophy?
Gosh, it's been a lot. I think obviously we weren't in Minnesota, so after we won, I was very blessed to have my family and my boyfriend there. So I had people that were going to celebrate with me. So we were on the ice. We got to take pictures. We lifted the trophy, did some media, and then did the champagne toast in the locker room, which was always the most fun. If you're part of a championship team, that's what a lot of people look forward to. And then, we got up early, got on a flight the next day, and did a lot of things as a team. We went to the Lynx game, we went to the Timberwolves game. Honestly, any game in Minnesota, a lot of our teammates have gone to. And then I went to Florida. So lots of stuff going on, but I think now I'm able to kind of just chill and relax.
Okay, I got to ask. We got to follow along on social media as far as the celebrations went, but was there anything interesting, funny, crazy stories that maybe didn't make it online?
I think the one that did make it to social media was my teammate Maggie 30 did the splits in the middle of the locker room, and Bar Down got that. And that was just funny because she's character, and I knew something was going to happen. But also when Lee was carrying the trophy, and obviously you can't cover your eyes, and people were spraying champagne, her eyes were bright red. Like she was holding the trophy with them closed at the end because she couldn't see because it hurt so bad. I feel like there's a few of those. We didn't have anyone fall off a table, but we did have some people on elevated surfaces as well.
I got to be honest, I was a little disappointed to hear that your team doesn't each get a day with the Walter Cup. Any info on that?
I have zero information. I don't know. The cup was obviously at the draft last night, and we did a number on it. It has to go back to Tiffany to get cleaned because there's so much alcohol and stuff on it. You can even see it last night. People were commenting on what did you guys do to Walter? Walter is dirty. So they have to go get it professionally cleaned.
Walter is dirty. I really didn't see that coming in this interview, but I do want to talk about your team and your run. No team in the league took more punches than Minnesota. You stumbled into the playoffs. You couldn't score. You almost got swept. You had that championship goal called back, and yet here you are, a Walter Cup champion. How did your team just keep moving forward after facing punch after punch?
Thinking back, that gives me goosebumps because that's a lot to go through. But as our team, we came together after a New York game and knew that wasn't our best. But knew that if we could get through to playoffs, that's when teams can light it up, especially when you haven't been doing well and then people expect you to lose. And then obviously Toronto picked us, and that's a little pat on the back from them saying, I think we're going to get you this time. And they thought they did, I think, to be honest with you, after you go up 2-0. But it was a whirlwind, and then getting into Boston and traveling. We played 10 games in 21 days and traveling to different cities every day and not being home for more than a day at a time. It's taxing, but at the end of the day, it's worth it because that, you're going to raise a cup at the end of the day, or you're going to have the opportunity to do so.
I got to ask about the disallowed cup-winning double overtime goal in Game 4. And I can ask it, Taylor, because, you went on to win Game 5. So you're really happy today. How did your team bounce back from such a heartbreaking moment?
It's heartbreaking at the same point, but for me now, it's whatever, we won. It is what it is. We would have loved if we would have won in Minnesota, things would have been gnarly. It would have been scary. I think even thinking about it scares me a little bit. But our fans would have been great and everything. But I think in that game, when you're going so long and it's almost 2 games already with all the overtimes and things, you're this is ours. You can feel the momentum. We had it. We had killed off 2 or 3 penalties already. Which if I'm the other team, I'm shoot, we missed 3 power plays. But I kind of knew when they had been in the penalty box thinking about it for a while. I was oh, I'm screwed. And the hard part was my best friend, Abby Breen, she obviously didn't play in the game because she's a reserve. She got all her gear on. They sat and waited for us until we won. Got on the ice, celebrated with us. She's like, dude, I have a bad feeling about this. I go, I do too, I know. They had to get back off, take their gear off, and leave.
Well, luckily, she got to do it all over again in Game 5 with a much better result. All right, I want to switch gears a little bit, and we're going to talk about the draft. Your team adds Claire Thompson. The champions get Claire Thompson. Talk about an embarrassment of riches.
I DM'd her and I said, I can't wait for you to get here. Can't wait to learn from her. She's been someone that is, on the younger side, but also has been through the Olympics and been one of the only defense to ever score a certain amount of points in the Olympics. And, so, she's been through it all. And I'm just really excited. We're really excited to have her. She's someone that is an offensive defenseman, can run the top of the power play and shoot the shit out of the puck. So just very excited to have her.
Okay, before we go, I have to ask you about your team off the ice because you had a coaching change right before the season, a GM change right before the draft. I know you're a player, but how do you help make it so that things don't become a distraction inside the dressing room for the players?
Yeah. Obviously, we're hockey players, and that's what we're here to do. We don't get to make decisions. We don't get to do those things. So I think for us, for me at least, like I said, I went to Florida, and then this next week I have a lot going on. I'm getting to coach a little bit this weekend, which is a small passion of mine. Depends on what you're coaching, but I think for me this is going to be a good one, and hopefully going to get back in the gym. I know a lot of our team is going to work on more injury prevention since a lot of the hitting and the physicality has been upped a little bit. I think that'll cap out a little bit next year. I don't know if we'll have as crazy of hits and things, but yeah, just work on that and make sure that, my game's strong. I have I guess it's small, like the summer's small, limited. You go to USA Hockey Camp in August, and that's already almost a month and a half away, I think. So just taking my time and getting my confidence back and doing a lot more scoring and shooting and stuff this summer.
Taylor, once again, congratulations on a fantastic season. Thanks so much for coming on the show. And now it's time for you to enjoy that off season.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
And with that, the book is officially closed on the inaugural season in the PWHL and the inaugural season of Hockey North. It's been a pleasure bringing it to you, and we're looking forward to next year. Year number 2. Can Minnesota defend the title? Yes, I already said that. Thanks for watching.